ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track, and ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
Welcome to Farm Here Daily, a field-forward podcast. I'm David Geiger, your host. I've been on Iowa TV and radio for the last decade and excited to join you on this new podcast, Farm Here Daily. Today on the program, a big report from the Make America Healthy Again Commission. We'll go over the implications for farmers with the chair of the Iowa Corn Growers Association. And while overall things are looking good ahead of the Memorial Day holiday weekend, we'll take a look at the crop in central Iowa with agronomist Meaghan Anderson. Please be sure to like and follow the podcast as well as our social media at FieldForwardPod. We'd love to have you join our community, keeping folks in Iowa informed about what is affecting our farmers. This is Farm Here Daily. And joining us on Farm Here Daily, we have Jolene Riessen, chair of the Iowa Corn Growers Association. Jolene, I've chatted with you many times before. It's always a pleasure. How are things going on the farm? You get all the crop in the ground?
Yep, all our crop got put in good shape, and did have a little emergence issue with some corn that got crusted, but it's come out of it really well, and yeah, we're off to the races, so looking good.
I bet it cooled down a little bit, but it's been very, very nice weather, relatively dry, and then we had that really nice rain.
Well, and we've been blessed with rain kind of the whole time, so to be honest with you, we are not in a deficit compared to other areas. So, but this last rain, and we almost got, a little over 2 inches, was very welcome.
Very welcome indeed. Now, something that came out that's not very welcome is a recent report we just got from the national level. It is the Make America Healthy Again Foundation group that released this report talking about what it views as health issues across the country. And it didn't have some great stuff to say about some of the things we do in farm. What are some of the things that stood out to you?
So they're concerned about our pesticide use and I farm too. And to be honest with you, I try and use the least amount of pesticide that I can, but I still want to get the job done. And okay, so I've been farming for right at 45 years. So I've seen a lot of change as far as the pesticides that we have been able to use out there on our crop. And we just don't use the amount of pesticides that we've used in the past. We use them in different ways. Our timing is better on them. And I just feel, that farmers do a tremendous job with the pesticides that we have available to us.
Now, I'm not a farmer, and so I say this because you guys already know this. If you drink too much water, you get sick. If you drink too much, or if you eat too much salt, you get sick. If you have too much of something, you get sick. Right. But when you have a properly dosed amount that is confirmed scientifically we have many things that do that. The USDA, the EPA, many things will say this amount is a tolerable level that shows no significant risk of any sort of issues or illnesses or diseases. Then you have to trust that seems to be the case in the vast majority of cases. And this seems to be going against some of those conclusions.
I just kind of call it fear mongering. It's putting putting that fear out there. That is what EPA, that is what the government, we don't just get to, get the chemicals from the manufacturer and just go willy-nilly and do however we want. Those chemicals take at least 7 years to get to market. So they have been studied, they have been, tested environmentally and, any hazards to people. I follow the science, and that's all I can do. You know what you know from the information that you've been given. So I trust my government. I trust the EPA. And if the EPA is concerned about something, concerned about a chemical, they'll pull it back in and they'll ask for updated data on it. And, I just look at glyphosate and atrazine, two of the ones that I know that got mentioned in that report. We've had atrazine. Shoot, I can remember my dad using atrazine and back in the day. And glyphosate, I know there's been, plenty of issue, or, people thinking that they have issue with glyphosate. We have used glyphosate for years, and it is probably in every single farmer's back pocket as a tool for weed control out there in those fields. And if we lose glyphosate, we will, to me, take a huge step back. I mean, we've made so many gains with the no-till, with conservation, with farming sustainably, and glyphosate has helped us do that. And to lose that in our toolbox would be absolutely devastating.
Now, this might be outside of the range of just the statistics you can pull out of your brain, but you would think that if there are these health risks or anomalies, then you would see them more present or statistically available in the group that uses them the most and is exposed to them the most, which would be the farmers. And do we see any sort of increased health risks for any of these products among farmers that would be most at risk and most exposed?
I would say no, to my knowledge. The statisticians have tried and have put those numbers together, and when they do that, they still cannot point to, yes, this is definitely causing problems, for humans out there in the environment, and we need to nix that. That is not the case. We've had, atrazine for a very long time. We've had glyphosate probably now for 30 years and have yet to come up with a study that says this is dangerous. And, and as a farmer, I don't want to use a product that I know might be harming people in the future. That's not what a farmer does. We want to feed the world. We want to give a safe, produce a safe, wholesome product. And I'm not going to produce something and feed, to the world per se, that I wouldn't feed my own family. So that's the kind of confidence I have in our herbicides, our insecticides, our pesticides out there, that they are safe. They have been tested, and they will. That's what our EPA for. That's what our government for. So, as tests get better, as we're able to maybe scroll down and really micro, look at some of that stuff, then make that decision and move from there. But in the meantime, to scare people that, oh, this might be something, no, don't do that to people. People trust farmers. People trust farmers as their food source. So, and I do not want to, break that trust between myself and consumers out there. I'm on for delivering a safe, wholesome product, and I do it to the best of my ability and by the science that I have available.
So you mentioned earlier, and I thought it was kind of poignant. This is a bit of fear mongering. It just kind of makes people scared, because the question that comes to my mind is, what does this accomplish? What does this do? Who does this benefit to reach out and say that these are issues or these are problems? Because right now I'm not really seeing it. What are the alternatives? How do you move forward? Because even in their report, they said we have to tread carefully because this deals with some tough agricultural issues, but they still put it out there through a kind of an unsubstantiated and behind closed doors assessment.
Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head there. The unsubstantiated, maybe piece to the puzzle. I don't know. I truly think they're reaching. As I look at, Make America Healthy Again. So, and they're, mainly focusing on the children. And as I was reading the report, they're concerned about the number of vaccines that we give our kids. And I'm like, I'm like, wow. So we're not supposed to protect our kids? Come on. It's like I say, and you hit the nail on the head. They're reaching, they're grasping, and, kind of like throwing mud at the wall and seeing what sticks. So, and I am saying with confidence that I feel out here in farm country that we are doing a tremendous job of using less product, using it more targeted than what we have in the past. and using it very responsibly. I kind of chuckle, when I go into Wally World or Walmart, sorry, and, and I see the Roundup containers on there, and and then I see the people that take it, and I look and I'm like, they're not taking a pair of gloves with them. They're not, rubber gloves to protect their hands. They're not putting on a pair of goggles. They're not, the personal protective equipment. They are not. Farmers, every year we have to go for training or testing so that we know what we're doing and that we are responsible when we're using these chemicals out there in the field. I don't see that happening with the urban or the households, that buy that. It's like, oh, I'm just going to take care of some weeds here. So I struggle with that. It feels sometimes like it's two different worlds there.
Right. And I think the point you made there is per label instruction, there's no risk or very limited, tiny, minuscule, ignorable risk. Just like going out in the sun has a chance to give you cancer, that there's just a possibility and there's a certain measure of risk you take in doing anything in life. And when it comes to these types of reports or these types of issues, if they're not providing the reason or the data that they came to the conclusion, all it really does is create confusion and a sense of distrust. What do you think of this in terms of how it may degrade the faith of Americans in the capabilities, qualities, and parts of what makes U.S. agriculture function?
As I look at that, agriculture has been attacked in the past, and yet we continue to do a good job. I want to say, we come back swinging. We come back with the science. We come back with the data that shows that we are doing things right. And unfortunately, they must not have looked at that because we got included in on this study. So.
Well, moving forward, what would you like to see happen? Would you like there to be a review of this, or how are you as an Iowa corn grower working with partners nationally to assess this or look at this?
Well, first of all, it's gathering the science to support what we've been saying all along, is that these pesticides that we've been using are safe if used in the correct way. We've been trained. The products have been tested. So, to me, you got to bring the science back, and then you have to talk to people that maybe are not, or have. Maybe they got on the internet and decided that that article was the Bible, the truth, and sadly it was not. So it's telling your story, or telling those people that are like, oh, you farmers, you are bad. No, we're not. We're part of the solution. For global warming, we're part of that solution for growing crops and feeding the world and in United States. So we will continue to push forward and with the truth, with science-based answers, and try and move through this. Talk to whoever we need to, and show them our data, and I mean, not just our data, but the data for the industry as to what we're doing, how it has been affecting, our farmers, our, people in the past, and just show them that, we're doing a really great job out there, and we will continue to do that.
Good last words there on this topic. The Make America Healthy Again report that was recently released and some of the impacts it may have on agriculture. We have been speaking with Jolene Riessen, chair of the Iowa Corn Growers Association, on Farm Here Daily. Thank you so much for your time, and appreciate the conversation we just had.
Very good. Thank you so much.
This is Farm Your Daily. We'll have a conversation in just a moment on the state of Iowa's crop in central Iowa. But first, let's take a look at the market close ahead of the 3-day weekend. July corn down 3.5 cents at $4.59.5. September falling 3 1/4, $4.37 3/4. Soybeans in July 7 1/4 down at $10.60 1/4, with August falling 6.5 cents at $10.56. Soybean meal in July, $2.30 a ton, in the red at $296.20. Wheat in July, 2 cents lower at $5.42.5. September fell 2.5 cents at $5.58. In the livestock market close for Friday, June live cattle up 17 cents a hundredweight at $215.80. August down a nickel at $210.45. August feeder cattle, 60 cents a hundredweight more at $300.37, with September rising 72 cents at $299.35. Lean hogs in June down 40 cents a hundredweight at $98.30, with July half a dollar weaker at $101.55 a hundredweight. That is the Friday market close ahead of the 3-day weekend Memorial Day holiday. This is Farm Here Daily.
¿Hablas español?
Sprichst du Deutsch?
If you've heard that sound from Babbel before, I bet you do. Babbel is the science-backed language learning app that actually works. With quick 10-minute lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts, Babbel gets you on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. With over 16 million subscriptions sold and a 20-day money-back guarantee, just start speaking another language with Babbel. Right now, up to 55% off your Babbel subscription at babbel.com/Spotify podcast. Spelled BABBEL.com/Spotify podcast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
And joining us on Farm Here Daily, we have back again Meaghan Anderson, our Central Iowa agronomist for ISU Extension. Thank you so much for joining us again, Meaghan. And we're heading into a 3-day weekend holiday, and fields are looking pretty good, or so I've heard so far. Is that kind of what you've seen as well?
Yeah, I would say that nobody ever calls me to look at their good fields. So I have been looking at some fields that are going through it here this spring. But overall, I think stuff looks really great. I'm glad to see the sun today because I think the corn and beans both could really use it and a little bit more heat than we had on Thursday. So I think, in the next week, we're going to see a pretty big jump in both corn and soybean if these slightly warmer temperatures and the sun play out the way I think they will.
Right, because we are in the last week of May, so planting's virtually done. Maybe there might be a spot here or two for replant, but we're heading into the full-on growing season. What does some of the emergence and some of the stages of the crop look like?
Yeah, I'd say for corn, most of the corn was in the ground probably by the end of the first full week in May. There has been a little bit more that's gone in more recently, but most of it is either just kind of at that like V1 to maybe close to V2 stage, where some of the early stuff is already basically at like V5. So it's really moving along, getting quite a lot of height on it. Some of it is a little short, which makes me think maybe that some of these cooler temperatures and maybe the drier conditions that we had before this week haven't been great for it. But I think we'll see a pretty big change in the growth. The furthest along beans I've seen are V1 getting kind of close to V2, but there's a pretty wide gamut running from anywhere from just in the ground recently to that stage. And then, we've even had replant stuff that's gone in or been filled in some areas where maybe there were some stand issues as well.
Now, looking at the crop growing pretty well, that tends to mean that there's some less appreciated plants also growing nearby. Weed-wise, what are we seeing?
Yeah, there's quite a bit of water hemp out in fields coming through, a lot of velvet leaf out in corn. And I would say overall our bean pre's are holding on quite a bit better than our corn pre's are, which makes sense for the time of year. I think maybe we're just a little bit ahead of last year on our weed size and problems that we might see with that. But we've been really warm overall until this last week or so. So I think it makes sense that they're ready to be sprayed, and hopefully the soils are drying up so we can actually get the sprayers out there too.
Now, alongside some of that weed pressure we're seeing, have there been much pest pressure over the last, I think it's been 10 days since we spoke last. Have there been anything growing elsewhere in the fields?
Well, as far as like insects and diseases go, I haven't gotten a single call or question about any diseases.
That's good.
Yeah, I think overall the insect pressure has really been relatively low, right? If I'm out in a field, I can find maybe a little bit of some bean leaf beetle feeding on soybeans, or maybe what looks like a little bit of chewing or something that happened on some corn plants, especially in ones that had, heavier residue or had a lot of maybe green weeds or cover crop or something in it earlier this spring. But I haven't seen anything that's anywhere near like a threshold level on being concerned. I haven't really seen any heavy pressure from pests. And I think that's a great thing, because before we know it, we'll have like corn rootworms and stuff to deal with. So I don't want to rush the pest pressure any more than I have to.
Absolutely. Now, looking ahead, we did get a little bit of rain, so we've had a little bit of moisture touch the fields. Are there any other concerns you're watching for? Too much dry weather or any other seasonal aspects you're getting ready for?
Yeah, I think our forecast is, at least according to NOAA, it looks like it's maybe trending warmer and drier. And I do think this, maybe another situation where we got this good rain. I probably got more rain than I needed in one event. I would have loved to have had that spread over several different events rather than coming down all in, 12 hours or so. But I think it is going to be a case where we're probably going to get warm and dry again, and we're going to be holding out for another rain. And so I'll take the moisture when we can get it. And before we know it, this crop will be growing really fast, and we'll be hoping for more rain probably.
Perfect. Any upcoming events for ISU Extension, some field days you're prepping for our farmers around Central Iowa?
Absolutely. We just put a blog out on our crops page that addresses some of our research farm field days that are coming up. We are going to have a weed science field day at the Curtis Research Farm, which is right where that feed mill is, really easy to identify, just south of Highway 30. That's going to be on July 2nd. There's a number of like Iowa Learning Farms field days that'll be happening in June and July as well on different conservation related topics. So you can find those at iowalearningfarms.org. And we've got a lot of really good stuff going on this summer, and I'm sure more to come that I don't even know about yet.
Well, Meaghan Anderson, any final notes as folks are heading into a 3-day holiday? Make sure to still scout a little bit this weekend as they head in, or are things looking pretty good to coast until the next seasonal issue?
Well, you stole my thunder a bit, David, but as always, I would tell people to get out and scout, especially if they're trying to decide when to put their posts on, or if they've already had their post-emergence herbicide out on their corn and or their soybeans. In that kind of 5 to 10 day mark after those applications, it's really good to get out and see whether or not they actually managed what you expected they would, right? Make sure that your weeds are actually dying like you want them to. Hopefully you're not seeing any new emergence. Hopefully any residual got activated, but you don't know unless you look, and you don't want to be surprised later when you can't get a rain in on it later in the season. So always good to be out and looking.
Well, it's always good to be talking to you, Meaghan Anderson, ISU Extension Agronomist for Central Iowa. Really appreciate the time, and I hope you have a good 3-day weekend holiday as well.
Thank you. You too.
All right, this is Farm Here Daily, a field forward podcast. Thank you for listening. Again, in order to keep producing this type of local Iowa content, we'd love to have you join our community. So please follow the podcast, send it over to your friends, as well as take a look at our social media channels at Field Forward Pod. Additionally, you can find me on social media at Geiger Reports, as well as WHO TV Channel 13 every weekday in their morning and noon hour programs. Again, I am your host, David Geiger, and I hope you all have a great Memorial Day weekend. We'll be back again on Tuesday, everybody.